Well, as I said earlier, the first greenfield mine in Tasmania in more than a decade was opened yesterday. Shree Minerals' Nelson Bay River Iron Ore Mine project was officially signed into operation with a crowd of media, politicians and workers looking on. The story of this mine started 6 years ago when Shree discovered a rich seam of high-quality ore near Tema in the Tarkine region. Since then, there have been state approvals, Commonwealth environmental approvals, a legal challenge to the project, yet another Commonwealth approval, and finally a sod turning. After all that, the mine is now subject to about 180 state and federal environmental conditions, but Shree Chairman Sanjay Loyalka is optimistic.
So we believe that the current resource that we have is only scratching the surface. We probably are sitting in a very large system. So the 10-year mine life that we have is based on a very conservative engineering. So we believe that, this mine will go on for many decades. So we are hoping to increase both the annual throughput as well as the life of the mine.
Mr. Loyalka said his company has faced a few challenges over the last 6 years in getting the project up and running.
I think, Deputy Premier is here. His leadership and the support that we have received from the government, from the local community has been really heartwarming. As far as the exploration is concerned, Mr. Pal, my colleague, has had a very strong conviction about the potentiality of this place. So, when we try to do anything new, there are always a few issues which need to be sorted out. We were sure that we will overcome these difficulties. We were trying to, put in place, and we have put in place, I'm proud to say, the best environment management practices. We strongly believe that mining and environment can both coexist in a very responsible manner. The mining industry in Tasmania has proven that, and that was the conviction that made us stay.
Can you describe your experience of the environmental approval process?
The environmental approval process, in current times, there is a process which needs to be followed, and I think that the process is rigorous, but it ought to be rigorous to ensure that, we are doing the right thing in the current times. The climate and the environment is important.
He says he's not concerned about the possibility of future litigation.
You see, one has to keep an optimistic outlook, and one has to have the faith in the system. We are fully, have full faith in the system, that it has been assessed in a very rigorous manner, and so there is no reason to be worried. Even if there is a protest or anything, we are in a democracy, so people have right to do that. We recognize that, but it does not worry us because we believe that the process has been very rigorous, and that gives us the confidence. Even if there is, we would still be able to move ahead.
There's an ongoing debate around foreign ownership and investment in Australia, and I was wondering what your view is on that debate.
Well, I think in today's time, the world we stay in is a smaller place. The capital is mobile, and we do need foreign investment here in Australia. I think the resource potentiality for Australia is very large. There is a lot of capital, which is there in Australia, but, we would do well to attract foreign capital as well.
Shree Chairman Sanjay Loyalka. The new site takes up 154 hectares and will host 3 pits cut over the first couple of years. The owners are anticipating they'll extract about 4 million tonnes over 10 years. And to give you an idea of what that actually looks like, it will fill the equivalent of 335,000 milk trucks over the course of a decade. All that ore is expected to bring in about $80 million revenue per year. Deputy Premier Brian Greene said it was a historic day.
This is an historic day for Tasmania, a historic day for the northwest coast and particularly the Circular Head region. The fact that we're opening a new mine in Tasmania is fantastic. It has taken a lot to get to this point. I think once people understand the size and scale of this project, weighed against the massive area of the northwest coast where mines have existed for over 100 years, they will appreciate that we can have mining and fantastic environmental outcomes as well.
Brian Greene says he's not concerned about today's federal court challenge to the Riley Creek Venture Minerals mine from the Tarkine Coalition.
I believe that the systems that we have in place, the fact that we've assessed the Riley project under the bilateral agreement, the fact that there's been so much rigour put around that assessment, the fact that Venture has spent over $30 million to get it to this point, will make it very difficult, in my humble opinion, to see any way that the project could not go ahead. So from my perspective, I believe that it would be very difficult under any circumstance, to see how the federal court could intervene.
Can you tell me whether you think the state is in a position to actually uphold international obligations to the United Nations on environmental standards if the environmental approval process does become a one-stop shop and it does stop with the state?
Well, already we've made significant inroads into the so-called one-stop shop. In fact, we have a bilateral assessment process that is in existence right now in Tasmania, weighed against the EPBC Act, which is the toughest environmental legislation in the world. So my expectation is the answer would be yes.
Deputy Premier Brian Greene. On ABC Northern Tasmania, it's 12 minutes to 7. You're listening to the Rural Report, and my name is Jane Ryan. The new Nelson Bay River mine will create 120 direct new jobs in the region, as well as flow-on employment and stimulation for the local economy. But Save the Tarkine have vowed to continue their fight against the mine and described the opening as a shameful day for the protection of the environment. Shadow spokesman for mining Adam Brooks says the news is good, but the state of politics in Tasmania could be frightening off future investment.
Look, I think it sends a very poor signal to investors and potential investors about what's going on politically in Tasmania. You're seeing a Labor Party more worried about fighting amongst themselves than focusing on what Tasmania needs. You also see a cabinet split where you've got anti-everything Greens sitting in cabinet opposing the very project we're standing on today.
Mr Brooks, what would you actually do differently to the Labor Party? They have actually achieved an approval and they've been warmly embraced by the company in doing so. So what would you do so differently?
I think it's important to see at the potential that we are losing because investors are looking elsewhere because they don't know what rules will change and they don't know what roadblocks are going to be put in place, and they also know that the softly approach by the government to the anti-everything Greens will continue. So in contrast, we will govern in majority. A Hodgman majority government will be absolutely committed to mining. We will have no more lockups, not one more stick, not one more rock. We'll also come down hard on protesters that want to illegally protest and chain themselves up to machinery and stop hard-working Tasmanians going to work and affecting businesses making a profit. We will absolutely send a clear message that we won't tolerate that.
You don't support their democratic right to take action?
Absolutely we support their democratic right to take action. But what we don't support is where they want to interfere with legitimate businesses on site, placing their own lives and other workers' lives in danger. We'll also remove the right of non-related third-party appeals so that the anti-everything brigade can't stop investment just because they're ideologically opposed to it, and that's the difference.
Shadow spokesman for mining Adam Brooks.